If we could have everyone take their seats or find their spots. Could we have everyone take your seats or find your spots where you want to be for this? Thank you. Thank you. The tune you just heard is called The Fallen, and it was composed specifically for 9/11. At this time, the South King Fire and Rescue Honor Guard will be presenting the colors. At this time, I'd like to have Chaplain Tim Claricopa come up for our blessing.
Would you bow your heads with me? Heavenly Father, 20 years ago, in the wake of the terror attacks of 9/11, we made a promise that we would never forget the men and women who responded on that fateful day, many of whom paid the ultimate sacrifice with their lives. We gave our word that we would honor and remember their courage and bravery, and remind ourselves that no matter how much evil we are faced with, their memory reminds us that there can also be great good. As we pay tribute to them, we would ask for your presence among us. Bless our time together today. We also ask you to comfort all those family members and loved ones who find this date so painful. Give them a sense of hope that only you can give. We pray this in your mighty name. Amen.
At this time, I'd like to and bring up Chairman Bill Gates, South King Fire Commissioner.
Thank you, Chief. On behalf of the Board of Commissioners, it is my pleasure to also welcome everyone to this memorial ceremony. I would like to, first of all, introduce the other members of your Board of Fire Commissioners, starting with Commissioner David Berger, Commissioner Bill Fuller. Our Vice Chairman, Mark Thompson, is not here today. And last, I'd like to introduce Commissioner John Rickert, and I'd like to take a moment and say a few words about John. John will be leaving the board at the end of the year. He decided not to run for re-election, something about needing more time to go fishing or something. But John has been a commissioner for 18 years. Before that, he was a fireman. He retired in 2000 as a captain with 32 years of service to Federal Way Fire Department. So if my addition is correct, 32 years as a firefighter, 18 as a commissioner, that's 50 years of tremendous service that John has given this community. Thank you very much, John. There are a number of other electeds here in the audience. And for the sake of time, I'd like to just ask the other elected officials to stand. If you're already standing, raise your hand so that we can applaud you. Good. Thank you for being here. I'd also like to right now to introduce and recognize two young ladies from Seattle. They are my granddaughters, Haley and Sydney Gates. And I thought it appropriate, they certainly weren't around when this happened 20 years ago. And so, as one of them told me, that they've heard very little, if anything, in school about 9/11. So I think it's important that for those kids that we start to tell them what 9/11 is all about, why we remember it, what's important, how it changed our lives forever, and so forth. So Mary and I drove up to Seattle this morning to get them, and we're very happy to have them here. Thank you. It is hard to believe that the tragedy of 9/11 happened 20 years ago. A lot of time has passed. A lot of rebuilding has occurred, but we are here today to show that we will never forget the almost 3,000 lives that were lost, including 343 firefighters. And the pictures are behind me of the 343 firefighters. We dedicated and officially opened this memorial 7 years ago. I continue to be impressed by how wonderful it is. We can never thank our people and the volunteers and the contributors enough for all the work they did to make this memorial a reality. In that respect, I'd like to just mention a couple things. One, in 2011, 10 years ago, our fire department received word that we were going to get a piece of steel from one of the World Trade Centers. And two of our firefighters, Lieutenant Scott Malin and driver engineer Sven Skeving, drove 55 hours to New York to get the I-beam that you see mounted back. And they drove 55 hours back with it. They got in a pickup truck, pulled the trailer behind them, and went back and got it. And while they were there in the area, they went to Shanksville, Pennsylvania, where the United flight crashed, and were able to secure a rock from that area, which is here also. Sven, where are you? Yeah. Thank you. I'd like to read a quote from the newspaper 10 years ago, what Sven said about this. He said, "We wanted to do this with honor and respect and bring this piece back to the Federal Way community so we can let the nation know that we haven't forgotten." End of quote. Thank you again. And last, and certainly not least, to get something like this memorial accomplished, it takes somebody that's, really somebody to really push to get it done. And that's maybe the best way I can put it. And I'd like to recognize Lieutenant Chris Birdie Shaw over here in the front row. I know a lot of people worked on this, but it was Chris's work on the design and his insistence on seeing it get built. I think there were times when he spent more time here than he did with his family. So thank you again, Chris. I hope that all of you will spend a little time visiting the memorial, if you've not already done so. And I like to tell people that come back sometime at night when it's dark. There's some parking spots right there. And look at it in the dark when the spotlights are on it and so forth. It's got just a completely different atmosphere. So come back and do that when you can. This memorial is for all that lost their lives on 9/11. Thank you again for being here and showing that you will never forget.
We're going to wait a few minutes. MSO Rick Arnone just returned from a call, and so while we wait, I would ask that you would take a few minutes to reflect on the last 20 years.
here. Chief, thank you, commissioners, electeds. I guess this isn't going to work, so I'll try to be loud. Can everyone hear me in the back? My name's J.R. Klein. I'm a paramedic here with King County Medic 1. I was born and raised in New York City. As a volunteer on Long Island since 1996. But I wasn't a hero on 9/11. The heroes standing in. I don't have a heroic story to tell. I didn't rush into a building. I didn't do anything of note. The most heroic thing I did on 9/11 was to give blood. When I got to the blood bank, the line was around the block. It was in that moment that I felt proud to be an American. So many people that were willing to stand up and do something, and they didn't know what to do, like myself. Later on, when the dust settled, we joined at the Valley Firehouse. We put some trucks in service, and we backfilled units in the city to perform 911 tasks while the other units were in service at Ground Zero. In New York City, on the EMS side, there's between 3,000 and 4,000 medical calls a day. 9/11 and the weeks that followed, that call volume plummeted. The call volume plummeted because people stopped calling 911 for nonsense. The violence stopped. You know, people were looking out for one another. It was amazing to be a part of. It was amazing to see what happened on 9/12 and the days after. When everyone flew the American flag. Everyone was proud to be an American. 9/11 changed me. At the time, I was working in IT, and I had aspirations of becoming an airline pilot. And I volunteered. I can't even say as a firefighter, as an EMT. And it was something that day that I knew that the alarm went off in the morning, and I hated going to work, but when the pager went off for a call, I couldn't wait to get to my car and throw on my blue light and rush to the fire station. And I said, you know what? It's time to reprioritize your life. And it was then that I decided to make EMS a career. In 2002, I started as an EMT full-time. In 2004, I became a paramedic and started working in New York City EMS. I served there until 2010 when I got hired out here to become a paramedic with King County Medic 1. And I love my job, and I love what I do, and I love serving the people, and I love serving my city, and I love serving this community as well. But what I want to talk about today is about the days after 9/11, when people came together. There wasn't any politics. It didn't matter if you were Republican or Democrat. It didn't matter race, creed, nationality, or anything. Everybody was proud to be an American. Everybody was patriotic. People came together. They were all proud to be American and stand up for what was right. So I want to take a moment to remember that we lost 2,977 souls on that day, 343 uniformed FDNY firefighters, but also 60 law enforcement professionals from the NYPD, the Port Authority Police Department, and some others. Also 8 non-FDNY uniformed EMS personnel. And since that day, I'm sad to say, we've also lost another 111 FDNY members due to 9/11 related cancer and suicide and PTSD. And there are thousands more who are fighting with PTSD, mental health issues, medical issues, cancer. So let's not forget them either. Let's try to remember what it was like after 9/11, what it was like when we were all one, when we were all proud to be American, when we didn't care what political party, who you voted for, whether you wanted to wear masks or not, whether you wanted to have a vaccine or not. It didn't matter. Nothing was so divisive then. We all came together. And I was proud then, and I'm proud now, to put on this uniform and to serve the people. I didn't know I was going to be doing this by myself. So I didn't have a whole lot written down, but I did write down one thing, and it's a quote, and I want to leave you with it. This is from Sandy Dahl. She was the wife of Jason Dahl, who was the pilot of Flight 93. And she said, if we learn nothing else from this tragedy, we learn that life is short and there is no time for hate. Think about those words. In this time especially, please, put away the divisiveness, put away the politics. Just come together. We're all American. Love one another. Treat each other with respect. Do the right thing. Thank these 343 for their service and the others. Remember everyone who perished that day and everyone who's fighting the fight now. And thank you all for coming. Thank you.
I would like to introduce Captain Anthony John, who will be saying a few words on behalf of IAFF Local 2024.
Hello, my name is Captain Anthony John, 25-year veteran of the Fire Service, Honor Guard Commander, and on behalf of both the local and the department, I'd like to welcome you all in helping us remember this 20th anniversary as we stand here today. Today we honor 343 brave souls along with nearly 3,000 men and women and children who lost their lives on September 11, 2001. We are committed to keeping that sacred trust with their families, including the loved ones left behind who have shown so much resilience over the last 20 years. But this anniversary is also about reflecting on what we've learned since this horrible morning 20 years ago today. The list is long and keeps growing, but one thing became abundantly clear that morning. America, like our brothers and sisters, is full of heroes who run towards danger in order to save others. For most, the enduring image of that day is that the towers billowing smoke or the smoldering wreckage after they fell. For us, it's the visceral images of our brothers and sisters climbing up those stairs while everyone else is climbing down. However, on this day, let us not forget the brave souls who stormed the cockpit knowing that it would be their final act, or the volunteers that showed up at recruiting offices in days that followed, willing to put their lives on the line. We've seen the same courage and selflessness over the last 20 years again and again. We saw it a decade ago when our military brought justice to Osama bin Laden, and we're seeing again right now in healthcare workers who are exhausted and on the brink of collapse doing all they can to save lives. 9/11 has showed us how many Americans give themselves in extraordinary ways. not just in the moments of crisis, but every single day. I hope we never take that for granted and that we never forget. Again, thank you for coming out.
On September 11th, 2001, 19 militants associated with an Islamic extremist group, Al-Qaeda, hijacked 4 airplanes and carried out suicide attacks against targets in the United States. 2 of those planes were flown into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center. A 3rd plane hit the Pentagon just outside of Washington, D.C. And a 4th plane crashed into a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Almost 3,000 Americans were killed during the 9/11 terrorist attacks. I would ask that we never forget. Never forget September 11th, 2001. Never forget, at 8:46 a.m., American Flight 111 crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center in New York City. Never forget, at 9:03 a.m., United Flight 175 crashed into the South Tower of the World Trade Center in New York City. Never forget, at 9:37 a.m., American Airlines Flight 77 crashed into the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. Never forget, at 9:59 a.m., the South Tower of the World Trade Center collapsed. Never forget, at 10:06 a.m., United Flight 93 crashed into a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Never forget, at 10:28 a.m., the North Tower of the World Trade Center collapsed. Never forget the 2,996 people that were killed on September 11th, 2001. Never forget the members of our military and their families who have given so much and sacrificed so much, bringing these terrorists to justice. And they continue to provide the safety and security to these United States. Never forget the 23 New York police officers, the 37 Port Authority officers, and the 343 firefighters and paramedics who all died on September 11th, 2001, in the service of others. Let's take a moment to reflect on September 11th, 2001. Thank you all for coming here today to share and remember September 11th, 2001. We will never forget, and I hope the rest of the world does not either. Thank you.